Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Good morning. I'm Sunnyvale Mayor Larry Klein. Thanks for joining me again at our early start time. August is flying by, and I hope, everyone is doing well out there. It's been a busy month to say the least, although, to a certain degree, a lot of a lot of from a county standpoint, and to some degree from other cities, they've taken a little break, but Sunnyvale just keeps on chugging. This is the 75th installment of my weekly virtual office hour address. We've now reached 522 days since the March 16th, 2020 county health order started the shelter in place in the attempt to slow COVID-19. It's done good, it's done bad. Things continue to change. 17 months ago, I converted my weekly coffee shop hours into these live stream addresses, and I haven't missed a week since. People really say they enjoy hearing from their mayor, whether or not it's live or watching it later. But these sessions are really good because they allow me to kind of reflect on what's happened over the last few weeks. But they also allow me to provide you some updates, some news, answer some of your questions, and of course, pass on some general words of encouragement. As I've said before, I'm now also doing in-person office hours. So if you want to see me after this Friday mornings, I'm usually at Bean Scene from about 9:15 to about 11:30. So if you want to drop by, say hi. If you want to reserve, 15 minutes or 30 minutes, you can just email me, and I'm sure we can fit you in. So, and thanks again as always for allowing me to represent and work for Sunnyvale. I think it's been a good and bad over the last over the last year and a half, but I think our voice is heard in the county a lot better, and I think we are improving hopefully every day. I hope everyone's doing well, staying healthy, and of course, continuing to wear your mask. It's required again when you're indoors, and of course, get vaccinated if you haven't gotten vaccinated before. Um, a few months ago, I started changing my background art every week, and with art provided by Sunnyvale artists. This week's art is called A Special Bond. It's actually a very amusing man and his camel, and it's by Gwendolyn Domingo. So if you're considering purchasing that art, you can reach out to me and I'll put you in contact with that artist. So let's go ahead and get started with what's happened at the federal, state, county, and city level over the last 2 weeks. Last Tuesday, City Council met, and we had a lot of things on our agenda. One of the biggest things is we gave direction regarding returning to in-person public council meetings, along with our boards and commission meetings, of course. And, the governor during COVID made several executive orders to allow remote meetings, especially regarding the Brown Act. And I think it's been very positive to a certain degree. It's allowed, residents to be at home and connect with council meetings and commission meetings. And, council gave some general direction that we want to continue that hybrid model as much as possible, mainly for residents and city staff to be able to connect up to meetings. Uh, Definitely, that's been a positive thing. There is the concept of that digital divide for some people, and so as we return to hybrid meetings, most likely um, late September, October. Right now, there's no requirement for hybrid meetings, and we'll probably stay remote, especially with the mask mandate and having to wear a mask during a meeting and trying to be heard with a microphone might be difficult. I know there's several school boards that have done that. Uh, but it's also good, remote meetings, remote option is also good for city staff. Pre-pandemic, if there was an item that a staff member had to be there for to report on, sometimes they were staying, their item didn't come on the docket until 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and so they would have to actually stay throughout the meeting until their item came up. And so this actually allows more flexibility for city staff too, that don't need to be there for the whole meeting, or can basically kind of tune out for not their portion of the meeting, but later come back in. And one of the things that I'm hoping that the governor and or the state legislator take up is the Brown Act, because council members can't actually easily remote into meetings when the Brown Act expires on October 1st. They actually have to be, if you're at a remote location, you need to publish that location as part of the general agenda. When it's published 3 days before the agenda, it needs to be ADA accessible. It also needs to be able to open to the public, meaning if you were doing this from your home, people would be able to come into your house and do public testimony from whatever room you're broadcasting in. And I think there needs to be some flexibility. It works when a council member is at a conference or something of that nature. Even then, there's a lot of logistical problems usually, because getting the hotel to publish that early, and finding a room that will be available to the public, that's always been an issue. But especially while we continue having issues with COVID, if a council member got exposed to COVID within a few days of a council meeting, they basically couldn't attend, because if the Brown Act goes back to the way it was before, because they didn't publish their agenda, they weren't their address wasn't published beforehand. And that being said, if they are potentially positive COVID, have a positive COVID test, then they wouldn't want someone in their home anyway. So there's that whole quarantining concept. So we'll see what happens. I haven't been happy with what I've heard, at least from talking to our state legislators, that they're not willing, and the governor's not willing to take this up anytime soon. I'm hoping that will not be the case, but we'll see. The other thing that council did was consider long-term advocacy positions for redistricting of elective offices. And so, and how that represents Sunnyvale residents. So we're going through, from a city standpoint, we're going through our own redistricting for our 6 districts. But this was, council didn't have any advocacy positions regarding redistricting and our representation to whether or not that's county, congressional districts, state level. It was important to make sure that we actually had that ability to write those letters and give the city staff and the mayor the ability to advocate accordingly. And we had a lot of debate at a council level. Ultimately, we decided on mainly 2 things to advocate for remaining in Congressional District 17, so Ro Khanna's district. And it's not just because of Ro Khanna, but it is the only minority majority district in the continental U.S. And then, of course, we debated on county supervisor representation. We're the second biggest city in the county. There's positives and negatives of having 1 or 2 county supervisors. Right now, we're split down the center. Ultimately, we decided that having 2 benefits us, and as long as those 2 really, care about what's happening in Sunnyvale, I think that makes a big difference. But it ultimately means that for Sunnyvale issues, there's always pretty much 2 votes on the county supervisors that are ready to go. And like San Jose is represented by all 5 county supervisors. So I think that was, that's important for the city to basically be able to have that representation. We also introduced an ordinance basically amending the number of signatures that residents or candidates for city council need to submit for their in lieu petitions in order for the city to pay for their ballot statement. So one of the things that we do as far as kind of campaign financing from a city standpoint is, if previously, if you got 250 signatures, then the city would pay for, it was about, I think, $5,000, it depends on what the election is, to put your ballot statement, your 100-word ballot statement or 250-word ballot statement into the information that's coming to to all the electors in the city. And so as we moved to districts, it was decided that maybe we should reduce those numbers. So we kept it as 250 for the mayor. So anyone running for mayor, they need to get 250 signatures uh, because it's a citywide candidacy. But when you're running for a district, reducing that number to 100 so that people still need to get a certain number of people. So candidates need to get a certain number of people to sign in order for the city to pay for their ballot statements. And of course, during COVID, we waived all those issues. We waived the requirements for those signatures because it was just better not having that interaction, not forcing people to actually sign. And this is part of the county registrar that requires these to be physical signatures, addresses, and all that handwritten, as opposed to doing some sort of DocuSign sort of thing. So council, gave that direction to the city, and so going forward, it'll be 100 signatures for the districts and 250 for mayor. And then last Wednesday, at a press conference in Oakland, the governor announced that all California teachers and public school employees must show proof of vaccination or submit to regular COVID testing. And the California Teachers Association was actually in support. They said that about 90% of their members are fully vaccinated, and those teachers who don't want to get vaccinated will get to keep their jobs as long as they agree to weekly testing. And of course, they have masks on and all that. So, from that standpoint, it's a safety issue. Definitely, there are. I know certain people that are taking medications that their doctors have said don't get the vaccine because of that. Definitely, it's an issue, especially with, and we'll talk about what's happened at the county supervisor meeting earlier this week a little bit later. And then last Friday, I attended a virtual fire academy joint graduation. So the city has 2 or 3 fire academies every year, and that happens at Fire Station number 2, right at Wolf Road in Arquez. And it's usually a kind of multi-jurisdictional event, as other departments send their candidates to go through the fire academy. This time we had 3 people from Gilroy, 5 people from Santa Clara County Fire Department, and there were 11, and that was a great number, 11 City of Sunnyvale candidates that went through the program and graduated. So it was good. As the mayor, it's one of my privileges to thank the families and thank the friends. Because of COVID, we decided to move that whole event as a virtual event, but it was good anyway. Being able to thank them for choosing the career of being ultimately a fire department personnel, or ultimately public safety for officers. For our public safety, of course, they go through the fire academy, they go through the EMS training, and of course the police academy. So it's about 18 months before they actually become active officers from that standpoint. But the the question as far as doing this remote, they've had to wear masks and everything of that nature, has been definitely an issue as far as the class is concerned. Lots of testing and all that, but they made it through, and it's actually been positive from that standpoint. And it was good. It was good to see their smiling faces and hear their stories and see the video of all that they went through to finish the class. And then last weekend, I attended multiple Indian Independence Day celebrations, here in Sunnyvale and in several of the surrounding cities. And it's great to see the cultural diversity of the Bay Area, and especially here in Sunnyvale. It was the 75th anniversary of India's independence, so it was great to ultimately honor the sacrifices and the trials of those people that fought for that independence. And from a Sunnyvale standpoint, we have a big Indo-American community, and it was good to be out there and see them join in some of that celebration. It's not, it wasn't the same as we've had in the past. There everybody, even outdoors, wearing masks and being safe as much as possible. But it was good to at least congregate and and honor some of those in our community. So thank you for those that I talked to, and it was a great chance to see some people in person, which I haven't had a chance to see in quite a while. As far as this week, lots of schools started in-person learning. After more than a year and a half of empty playgrounds and let's say remote learning, students are back at school. So just as a reminder for people, students are walking, biking, or even driving to school for the very first time. So please remember, while you're out there, drive carefully, observe traffic laws, obey the 15 mile per hour speed limits around our schools. That was one of the things that Sunnyvale put in place about 2 years ago now, that we reduced the speed limit in all of our school zones to 15 miles per hour. Obey our public safety officers are out just to remind people this week. But of course, be on alert for pedestrians, bicyclists, obey the crosswalk guards, and I hope that this is a safe back to school year for everyone. And I'm sure I've heard from a lot of parents that are happy, a little sad, but a little happy that their kids are finally back in person, back at their schools. And on Tuesday of this week, Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors met for the first time since their summer break. Sunnyvale doesn't get a summer break. We actually have 2 meetings a month year round by our charter. But I listened in on a good portion of that meeting. They covered several things. There were a lot of updates on COVID and where we stand with the Delta variant. How they're getting out more vaccination, the mobile vaccination van sites to different places in the county, looking at the increase as far as COVID is concerned, the effects of the Delta variant, which we'll talk about and what the numbers are in a little bit. And there was a lot of public testimony from residents and a lot of county staff on the county's requirements for vaccinations for their employees. They made that announcement last month that they were going to require all their employees to be vaccinated, but they don't have full buy-in from the labor unions yet. So the discussions continue from that standpoint. That was one of the things that the governor basically backed down on, as far as working with the teachers unions, similar sort of thing. Everyone should be vaccinated. If they're not, then regular testing. We'll see what happens as far as the county is concerned. And from a county standpoint, we're requiring masks when you're indoors. One of the things that went in place from a San Francisco standpoint is if you're going to be indoors at all for an extended period of time, what it went in place today is everyone needs to be vaccinated. You can do quick takeaway, you can be masked and do quick takeaway, but if you're actually going to sit down in a restaurant, you are required, or go inside a gym, or everything else, you are required to have basically proof of vaccination, which as much as I think everyone needs to be vaccinated, that causes a little bit of a barrier for some people, or for people that can't be vaccinated because of health issues. So anyway, we'll see where that goes from a county standpoint. At Tuesday's meeting, there's also lots of discussion on closing Reed Hill Airport. And there are studies over the last few weeks about the leaded gasoline that the small planes that are used at airport, a lot of them using that airport, and the effects on the children and the residents nearby. They're finally moving to unleaded gasoline, but there's still kind of direction from the county supervisors to move forward with closing that airport. That has bigger repercussions, and we'll see what happens as far as getting a final approval of that. And then, of course, there was lots of discussion on transparency with the county jails. And I commend Supervisor Simidian and Supervisor Lee for bringing forth kind of that request to have the federal government and the state government do a closer look at what's happening at the jails. And I was actually surprised, and I didn't remember that the county sheriff had actually taken over operation of the county jails back in 2010. And so there were a lot of there's been a lot of issues with Sheriff Smith for a while now. But I think it's important, just from a transparency standpoint, that we have other people look at what's happening in our jails and some of the occurrences that have happened, especially over the last few years. And in talking directly with several of the supervisors, there have been some of the information that they've seen that hasn't been made public is definitely a little troubling. And I think that to me is what's why Supervisor Simidian and Supervisor Lee brought this forth to the county supervisors. And then on Tuesday night, council interviewed our applicants for our boards and commissions. So as I've said before, if people are interested in getting more involved, on a quarterly basis, we go through filling, and there's constant turnover, either because of term limits or people getting busy or people moving from Sunnyvale. There's constant openings on our boards and commissions. So we interviewed several candidates Tuesday night, and we'll be appointing them later this month. And then on Tuesday evening, we also had community outreach for cricket batting cages. So a few years ago, council approved the feasibility study for adding cricket batting cages to our parks, and ultimately, we're starting to go through that process of, staff performed a preliminary site analysis of Sunnyvale parks, looking at potential sites, identifying, potential locations where they might fit in well. And now it's gathering community input, looking at funding, preliminary design, and what the budget is as far as that's concerned. And if you missed that meeting, if you want to hear more, I think that meeting is already online. So if you go to the city website, you can find to watch that meeting. But there's another outreach meeting scheduled for next Thursday, the 26th. And there's also a survey open until September 10th. So you can give your feedback if you have ideas, if you have questions. Definitely join that conversation. There's a big cricket, youth cricket and minor league cricket, and conceivably a major league cricket support within our community, within the South Bay, within the Bay Area overall. That's one of the things that council gave direction to city staff to investigate. So one of which was youth cricket batting cages, and the other thing, of course, was conceivably looking at a cricket stadium at Baylands Park. And so that's one of the things that I think would be positive. We're constantly reevaluating our park system for what the needs are of our community, and that ever-changing need as our community continues to change. And then on Wednesday of this week, President Biden announced that he's directing all nursing homes to require their staff be vaccinated against COVID-19 in order to continue receiving Medicare and Medicaid funding. And this is basically a direction to the Department of Health and Human Services to draw up the regulations making employee vaccinations critical if that institution is getting Medicare or Medicaid funding. And I think, this is critical mainly because I think the the main people, not that there aren't, people across all ages who gotten COVID and been affected either and conceivably died. But I do think that our most at risk people are our senior population. And so Biden, this is part of Biden's campaign to get all Americans vaccinated and using the tools from a federal standpoint, and this is the first time that he's threatened to withhold federal funds in order to force people to get vaccinated. And then on Wednesday, there was a statewide fire update, and I was actually, so Governor Newsom's been visiting several of the fire sites, but this was mainly from Cal Fire officials. And there's fires up and down the state. The air quality in Sunnyvale has not been great this week, in the entire Bay Area for that matter. It's not been horrible, but we've seen a lot of orange skies throughout the day, and air quality is supposed to get better this weekend at least. But when you smell that smoke in the air, people really need to protect protect themselves and avoid exposure as much as possible. If possible, stay indoors with the windows and doors closed until smoke levels subside. But hopefully that'll be clearing up this weekend according to this morning's weather forecast. So the direction the wind changes and all that. But ultimately there are lots of fires in the state right now, and Cal Fire, and we haven't, we're still just getting into fire season as far as that's concerned. So it is a difficult time to say the least. Let's go ahead and get to our weekly COVID numbers. So the numbers keep increasing, and the Delta variant keeps spreading. From a national standpoint, we now have 37.2 million cases. It's another 900,000 new cases in the last week, which was about the same as we had a week ago, about 900,000 then. Nationally, we've had 199 million, and we'll be breaking 200 million people vaccinations. 199 million vaccinated with at least one dose. And so we'll be breaking 200 million probably today is my guess. But that's over 72.5% of adults with at least one dose, and 62% of adults are fully vaccinated. So those numbers are slowly increasing from a national standpoint, but we're still having deaths. We've now reached 623,000 deaths. That's more than 6,000 deaths just in the last week. And a week ago we had 5,000 deaths the week before. So the number of deaths, the number of cases continue to increase around the country. As far as California is concerned, we're doing better, but we're still having a lot of cases, a lot of deaths. From a California standpoint, we passed 4 million positive cases. And we now have about 12,000 cases a day now, where we were about 10,000 cases a day last week. And so we're going up several thousand cases a day on a weekly basis now. So it's not looking good from that standpoint. We reached more than 64,000 fatalities within California related to COVID-19. That's up about 300 since last week. On a positive note, we're doing a lot. We're doing fairly well as far as vaccines are concerned. We've had 45.6 million vaccines administered, about 600,000 just in the last week, but that's down from 1 million 2 weeks ago, 700,000 a week ago. So it's getting those vaccines out to those people that still haven't been vaccinated. So it's making those additional efforts. You know, from a state standpoint, we're still at number 9 on those states with at least one dose. So that's 80%, 80.8% of our residents are have at least one dose, and we're still at number 16 on states with residents that are fully vaccinated, with 65% of our residents that are fully vaccinated. And then from a county standpoint, you know, our cases continue to go up. We've almost reached 130,000 people that have tested positive from COVID-19. That's up about 2,500 people in the last week. That was, you know, 2,000 a week ago. So we're doing a slight increase even at a county standpoint. We've had 1,716 deaths. That's 5 additional COVID-related deaths in the last week. And then, of course, from a vaccination standpoint, we're pretty positive. You know, we've now reached 86%, 86.2 exactly, of county residents age 12 and above with at least one dose, and 80.5% of our residents 12 and above are fully vaccinated. So, you know, it's great that we passed 80% of our residents that can be vaccinated are fully vaccinated. So, you know, that's kudos to everyone who's got their vaccination. You know, I continue to do lots of advocating on our city's behalf, you know, mainly at the county level. You know, I continue discussions with our county health and county supervisors. You know, if you want to get tested, you can go to sccfreetest.org. I got tested last week, and I thought, you know, just to make sure I was, you know, negative as far as COVID-19, but it is harder to get those vaccine testing right, or that COVID testing right now. And then as far as vaccinations, that's a lot easier. You know, there's definitely, between what the county's providing, what, you know, CVS and Walgreens are providing, there's a lot more opportunity to get your vaccination. The city's helping out, so if you need to set up an appointment, you know, at the senior center, our care managers are working to help seniors. If you're a senior, if you know of a senior that needs the county's in-home vaccination service, definitely talk to our senior center at 408-730-7360, and they will help set up that vaccination appointment for you. And the county has lots of drop-in vaccination clinics. You can go to sccfreevax.org. You know, as I've talked about before, I talked with county health, and they will be doing, they did the evening pop-up at the old Macy's parking lot right at Murphy and Washington for the first night of our summer music series, the first Wednesday of August. And that pop-up vaccination van will be downtown again next Wednesday for the last, it's amazing how quickly August has went, the last Wednesday night music event next Wednesday. And so they'll be there the 25th from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. So the last one was fairly successful. It's good that it's in the evening, so that those people who are working all day long, they haven't had a chance. They have a great opportunity to come downtown, hear some music, and of course get their vaccines. And then I also got the county to commit to having another pop-up at El Dorado Mobile Home Community, and that'll be happening later in the fall. So I'll give more information when we get closer to those actual dates. But you know, that's one of the things, is trying to reach out into these communities and making sure that getting the vaccine is as easy as possible for everyone who wants to get that vaccine and can get that vaccine. I wanted to announce some upcoming events. So I talked about our next Thursday night is August 26th, is another outreach for our cricket cricket batting cages. So if you're interested in that, you can go to the city website and get information. Our next council meeting is Tuesday, August 31st, and there will be several big items on that agenda. The biggest is we will be reviewing data collected for the temporary closure of the eastbound Tasman Drive lane. And we did that during COVID because there are no sidewalks along Tasman. So for people to kind of make it from wherever they're living to like grocery outlet at the corner of Fair Oaks and Tasman, there wasn't really a safe way. And so working with city staff, we ended up closing one lane on the south side of Tasman, and ultimately with the direction that city staff will come back with the data collected, as well as considering, what we'll be deciding on that Tuesday night meeting is considering whether to extend that lane closure as employees begin to return to the workplace. So ultimately, it's been there's been, I've heard good and bad things about closing those lanes, and especially as 49ers, at least as far as the Levi Stadium has started up, as far as people are starting to go back to work in Moffett Park, how that affects the residents in that area and in that traffic thoroughfare. And then the other thing that the council will be reviewing is considering removing on-street parking for Willow Avenue. And so Willow is the street right next to Lawrence Expressway, just south of the Caltrain station. And so it's basically removing some of that parking to create class 1B buffered bike lanes on both sides of the street. And that was one of the things that had been called out in our active transportation plan last year. So it's starting to implement that active transportation plan. And then finally, of course, we'll be appointing some boards and commissioners based upon our interviews, and that's that ongoing effort to make sure that we get recommendations from our different boards and commissions and have a full set of commissioners that are there. Let's go ahead and get to some of our weekly questions. Eric asked, there was an outreach meeting earlier this week considering removing the parking spaces along Sunnyvale Avenue between Maud and Evelyn. What is happening with that? I've received multiple emails from residents both for and against removing that parking, and it's that issue of removing parking, creating bike lanes, making that whole area safer for bicyclists. Staff is currently taking comments. There will be a BPAC meeting, so a Bicycle Pedestrian Advocacy Commission meeting in September, and then it will also come to council in October as far as what direction we will ultimately give, council will give to staff on what happens with that parking. And so it's a fairly long stretch depending upon where you're looking at. There's a kind of questions about whether or not you remove parking on one side or the other, how you fit those bike lanes in to make it safer for those cyclists. And there's several schools that people going from that area to like Homestead or Fremont High School, or kids going into Bishop. All that is things that need to be taken under consideration. And of course, the residents, senior residents who don't have enough parking, or if there's parking where they need to be. So those are always questions that come up, and it's dealing with kind of that mixed problem as far as trying to make our streets safer, and then trying to give people a place to park their cars if they can't park, on their actual property. Cynthia asked, what is the status on outdoor dining on Murphy? I heard that it was being limited during music, and that was mainly for the first night of Wednesday night summer series. That was kind of people, the businesses or the cafes had to remove their seats from the street and move it back to the sidewalks in order to make it easier for people to pass through. It's now only being limited for until 2:30 p.m. so they can have lunch and then make it easier for the residents to be there as it gets closer to that 6 p.m. kickoff for the music, and then of course and that's Wednesday nights, of course, for Saturday night jazz. It's a little bit easier because tables are actually put out there, and it's a lot more open from that standpoint. But ultimately, restaurants are able to use that, and there's only a few more performances left in our summer series. I hope people have enjoyed it. I was out there for a little bit Wednesday night, and I'll be back there again next week, just to see everybody, and happy to see so many smiling faces, people enjoying summer. Dave asked, the trains going through downtown need to be controlled on how much horns they use. It's not healthy for people living near the station to put up with that abuse. Sunnyvale should get the Caltrain should get with Caltrain on reducing the amount of horn noise, not including hearing loss for those adults and children waiting at the station. Please stop the trains from using their horns at night. It's getting worse. And so, horns are mainly there from a safety standpoint. At the station, it's basically to indicate to people that a train is either arriving at the station or passing through a station. But there was also the intersections, and there was just a death when earlier this week when the Caltrain struck a car in Burlingame, and so that's one of the things that it's required that they blow their horns as they're going through those or coming up to those intersections. One of the long-term solutions, at least from the intersection standpoint, is grade separation. As I mentioned last week, there are Measure B funds, $700 million that we approved in 2016. So as part of our sales tax towards local transportation, Measure B, in 2016. But that $700 million need to be split between Palo Alto, Mountain View, and Sunnyvale. And so Palo Alto has 4 intersections, Mountain View has 2, and Sunnyvale has 2. And it was trying to figure out what the appropriate split of that was. We have the most complex intersection with the Mary and Evelyn location, and the number of lanes, the width of all that, the amount of traffic that would go through there on a daily basis, at least pre-COVID, was very high. And so it was actually really important from that standpoint to at least try to get something that was, I'll say, more equitable as far as the amount of effort or the amount of cost that we put into each intersection to do grade separation. From an expediency standpoint, finally the city's just agreed to break it down as, depending upon the number of intersections that you had, you'll be able to get that money. So split it, half the money goes to Palo Alto because they have 4, a quarter goes to Mountain View and Sunnyvale because we have additional 2 intersections, so that we can move forward with getting those grade separations done, so that it's safer for residents. It's also safer for the operation of Caltrain, that you're not having cars interfacing with the Caltrain itself. Rich asked, when is the new OSH opening? So there are hiring signs out there, at the location at 1601 Hollenbeck. And of course, this is the outdoor supply hardware. It's not the old, orchard supply hardware. So it's more focused on, plants and equipment for outdoors. It's not, it's no longer will be indoor sinks and everything of that nature. That being said, I look forward for that opening, and I've heard it's going to be opening, sometime in October. George asked, we're under a dire emergency regarding water. What is the city doing to get the word out? And, last month, council declared a stage 2 shortage for a water emergency. And that's basically setting a goal for a 15% water use reduction, and it approved, mandatory irrigation schedules so that people should only be irrigating their property three times a week. And so it all depends on what your address is. On odd addresses, you get to irrigate Monday, Thursday, Saturday. On even addresses, it's Tuesday, Friday, Sunday. So no watering on Wednesday. But it's getting that word out. Customers are still prohibited from irrigating between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. But it's getting that word out, which is really important, that here's the schedule. If you violate, you get 2 possible warnings, and then on your 3rd violation, you get a fine of $250, and a 4th violation, a fine of $500. But a postcard should be going out today to everyone in the city, and then we'll be putting out reminder yard signs around the city. There'll be ads in the Sunnyvale Sun, social media, even tabling at the farmers market. But it's getting that word out that people need to use less water. And I've been showering with a bucket in the shower for a while now, and it's reusing that water wherever you can. Chris asked before, when is the Hanabusa Cafe opening? And so that opened about 2 weeks ago now. This is the Japanese souffle pancake store at the corner of Washington and Mary, where the old Starbucks used to be. And so they opened. I got to enjoy them last week, and very, very good. It's kind of a dessert breakfast sort of thing. Very flaky souffle pancake, and then fruit. It was very refreshing and a good treat, to say the least. And lastly, Margarita asked, how do I have our sidewalk tree trimmed? I don't know where to start. For so many of the city issues, and I always bring this up, go to Access Sunnyvale. So if you go to the Sunnyvale website, sunnyvale.ca.gov, you'll see an Access Sunnyvale link at the top of the page. That's where you can report issues with sidewalk trees, with cracks in the sidewalk, potholes, street lights throughout. It's the best place to deal with reporting abandoned cars or any problem that you might encounter while you're going through the city. That's what it's there for, to a certain degree. Let me see if there's any other questions. Oh yeah, what's happening with Target? For some reason it's been closed. What's happening and when will it be open? So ultimately, Monday of this week, I think the employees went into Target and found that several ceiling tiles had fallen down, and they started evaluating and they realized that they needed to do further inspection for the safety of the employees and the safety of the customers going into Target. And I think they've undertaken a much bigger effort to make sure that those tiles are going to stay in place and that it's safe for people inside the store. And so Target has been closed since Monday afternoon. I've heard that it probably won't be reopening until this upcoming Monday, so it'll be closed through the weekend. Unless things move quickly today, it'll be closed, should be reopening beginning of next week. And so, and this was a new building that was built about 2005, 2006, when they tore down the old, Montgomery Ward's Sears store that used to be there, and built basically the store on the 2nd level with parking underneath. And so, ultimately it's for the safety of those residents. Let's see. Chuck asked, will there be an Art and Wine Festival this year? Yes, the Chamber will be putting on an Art and Wine Festival the first weekend of October, so October 2nd and 3rd, and that's still in the works as far as that's concerned. Anything else? Any updates on any in-person city events? So ultimately, the Chamber is running the Art and Wine Festival. The The Downtown Association is, of course, running the music festival, so that's Wednesday night and Wednesday night rock and Saturday night jazz for the rest of August. They're looking at conceivably a few other events maybe in the fall. There will be a State of the City, although that will be reduced just because of what's happening with Delta right now. But that's the main thing. Um, and I think that is it. Okay. And actually, someone says that Target will be reopening on Tuesday, and I think that might be true. I've heard Monday, I've heard Tuesday from different sources. I think if it's going to be closed until Monday, they might reopen Monday afternoon after final inspections or something of that nature. We'll see what happens, or it'll be Tuesday, which would kind of make sense. Uh, let's go ahead and wrap up. Thanks for joining me again this week. I'm proud of Sunnyvale and just our general response to the pandemic. And, it hasn't been an easy year and a half, but things keep coming up. The future continues to be uncertain, but your actions have made a difference and continue to make a difference. Get your vaccination if you haven't already. Uh, Continue to help build and help rebuild our community wherever you can. I'm always happy. I've met with several people this week that are trying to get their community together between different ideas and helping Sunnyvale wherever they can and helping residents here. Sunnyvale will emerge from this as a stronger community. We're in this together. We will get through this together. Thanks for listening. Take care. Continue to wear your mask and have a fantastic weekend. Take care. Goodbye.